Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another installment of Quad P, Practical Poker Profits Pod. I'm getting better at this. Anyway, hope everyone is doing good and been running well and things like that, and freaking doing your thing on the grind or whatever, like in regards to poker. And so today I wanted to talk about uh, a couple of things. So something that's happened to me, or what happened to me recently when I went to the card room. So to backtrack, before I get into like my little story about what happened to me this last time and like the lessons that I've been retelling myself, because these are lessons that we end up learning early on or at different times, and then mm, a lot of times people need to keep relearning these lessons, because we're not perfect, and so I definitely fall into this category. So yeah, because it's like just because you learn something or like about something doesn't mean that when the lights are on you and then it's like prime time, it's like live, that it doesn't necessarily translate to the execution of it as if you're going to do it right. Like in theory, yes, but it doesn't always happen like that at all, especially in a competitive uh strategic warlike game like poker, where there's brutal aspects to it, or very aggressive aspects that make it seem like different versions of violence or collisions, kind of like car accidents or something like that. So in a game like this, um sometimes we have to keep reintegrating these concepts, kind of beat ourselves over the head with it until we start getting it, in order to plug our poker leaks or to plug our energetic leaks and our mindset leaks and all that stuff. So, it's like this is for anything, like it could be for like sports, like basketball. Like you can learn different dribbling moves, in the gymnasium by yourself, and learn how to do layups, and learn how to do all these different things in basketball. But then when you go to a real basketball game and you're competing with these other people, and freaking it's like really, it's like going down. It doesn't necessarily mean that the skills that you learn in the gymnasium by yourself are going to translate to that game, when it comes to hitting that. So this weekend, I was playing my regular 1-2-2, and I had ace queen, which is a very good, is a very good hand, whether you've been running cold or not, you know what I mean, or like just like not been able to catch cards or not. Either way, it's still a good hand. And last episode we were talking about, I was showing you guys the chart of, like, it was like some kind of hand ranking chart, and it gave it would give you stats about what percentage you supposedly are if you get somebody one on one, two on one, all the way to eight people in the pot, right? And the big note that I read over and over again, that I was, like, one of the things I was driving home, was that when it comes to premium stuff, premium hands, you have to respect it, and then you have to bump it up, because you just want to get about one to no more than about two players to hit it with you, to go in the pot with you. And so with that being said, that's why I was giving the little precursor to this little story, because I still wasn't taking my own advice. A combination of, uh, I think, because I've been running so bad, like this last month was probably the worst run that I've had in all aspects relating to poker. It was probably the worst run that I had in several years. And then so I think my mind was still like, I was still like on versions of tilt, like throughout these last couple weeks, like whether I knew it or not, like I was still kind of tilted up in a way. And then so in this regard, I was like worried that like in the back of my head, I was worried that I was gonna get a bad run of cards. And then so ace queen is good, but it's not like the creme de la creme or anything like that. It's just something that you definitely want to bump it up with. And I didn't. I did like a small raise, like it was about 7.5 big blinds, And in theory, and for this game that I was at, unless you were at a super nitty table, which I was not, and then usually you would know if you're at a nitty table, a super tight table, in the first 10-15 minutes, you would easily know. And I was there for, at least at this point, at least a half an hour, or at least 20-30 minutes. So I knew that it was not a nitty table. And so I could afford to make a good healthy regular raise, which should have been in hindsight, it should have been at least about 20 big blinds for this. So that way I get just one caller because these people were willing to play. But I think just a combination of the weeks of me running bad had me on this kind of version of tilt that I didn't even know I was on. Like I was just being too like wary, you know what I mean? If you go in the card room and you're going in there and you're wary about stuff and you're wary about losing your money and all that stuff, it is not a good time to go in there. You do not want to be going in there wary about losing your stack or wary about running bad. You have to be able to you just have to push past it if you want to really be sitting down in there that day, because to have that stuff lingering in the back of your head, it's going to make you not go in all the way like when you should at certain spots that will really help you. And things over there can happen really quick. I think about even like football, for example, like if people are practicing football with their helmets and all that, and if one guy is afraid to hit the other person, if he holds back when he's doing a hit, he's gonna end up getting more hurt. He might get like some kind of neck issue, some kind of like something might happen more compared to the other guy who went through with the hit, like he followed through with the hit. You know, I think they even have those things with like I remember hearing about those little crash tests, or no, about drunk people, and then when they get in a car accident that they get less hurt than a person who's sober or something because they stiffen up in the accident. So it's like they go with it. You have to be able to go with it in a sense, because if you're wearing, you're holding yourself back like this because and then you end up is you're going to end up getting sucked out. It's just bad all around. It's going to take your aggression away when you should be aggressive sometimes, and then it's going to make you just like a target on top of that. It's just bad in a lot of ways. And then when I made it that it was about 8 big blinds. When I made it that, I got freaking 4 callers, so it's 5 of us going down into this pot. And then so that is not that great, for ace queen, or just even in general, anything at all, to have 4 other people going with you. And it's a trip too, because I was even explaining this on the last episode. I was like, you want to make it worth a thing, and then you want to make it like you want to make the bet worthwhile enough to just get those callers, because even if you have pocket aces, and I said that if you get 4 or 5, that means you did something wrong with your pre-flop betting, for sure. And the flop came out. It was something like next time I'm going to pull up a little chart or whatever, but I'm going to explain it real quick. And so it was about like it was like 7, it was like 7, 8, 10, or something like that. It was something like 7, 8, 10. Rainbow in terms of so the suits were all different, but it was a straighter. It was like a straightening board already off the flop. And then so I bet 25 big blinds. I donk led, because I was like, all right, I got. Oh no, it was a queen was in there. Okay, so anyway, but it was like queen 10-7, something like that, right? And so I donked out. When you donk lead, that means you bet in front of the other people, right? And so I did that because I was like, all right, well, I got top pair, top kicker. Like I felt like I was pretty good, like not 100%, but in general, pretty damn good. I felt right. And I got the other couple people out, and then the last guy re-raised me. He min raised me. So from $50, he made it 100, right? So 50 big blinds. It went from 25 to 50 big blinds. And I was like, oh, okay. And at this point, I'm looking at the flop, and I'm thinking, all right, well, at this point, there's a possibility of him having 10-8, right? Because it was like 10-8 queen, something like that. And I was like, all right, well, he can have 2 pair. And at this point, I was still willing to see 2 more cards, to peel some more cards for the rest of the big blinds for the other 25. I was like, all right. So I did that. And after that, it was like some kind of break card, And so I was like, all right. I was like, that's pretty good for me, because if it was like a straightening card, like a 9 or like a 7 or something like that, to make it a 4 liner for the straight, then it would have been really bad. And I was like, then I would have been like, all right, especially if he starts, betting in on me. and he made it something so like very cheap. He made it like $30 or like $35, something like that. And I was like, man, this seems really fishy. It seems like I don't know what he's trying to do, and like in terms of is he really trying to get value? But I just felt like he was trying to protect something, or like he was still trying to go for his draw, but he was just trying to protect it in a way to uh kind of do like a bet in order to just to kind of keep it low, like more on his terms, right? I forget the exact term. It's not a blocker bet. I don't think it's called a blocker bet, but just to kind of keep the pot kind of more in control, so it doesn't get, so it just doesn't blow up, at this moment. And then so I paid that off on the turn, and then we get and then we get the river, the last card, and it was another brick type of card, and so I wasn't too concerned about it. And then he made it, and then I think he bet like the same amount, some small amount, and I was like, okay. And then so I paid it off, thinking I was pretty good anyway. Like it just seemed really fishy what he was doing. I'm like, is he really going for like this kind of thin value, or I think he's like trying to protect what he thought he was trying to get. Like even though like it didn't pan out, like I thought he didn't get it. I thought he was just drawing, but he didn't get there. And then we flip over our stuff, and he ended up flopping the straight, which I didn't like. I didn't see, in a sense. I was like, oh, I was thinking more about two pair, right? I was like, no, he actually flopped the straight, and I was like, oh my god, well, this makes sense why he freaking raised me immediately on the flop. And I was like, I wonder if I wasn't like tilted up from these last couple weeks, that I've been going through. I was like, I wonder if I would have like called it. It was kind of close, but if it was me, like I was thinking about me from months ago, I would have exploitatively folded. Oh, now I remember something else that happened with this guy. The day before, this guy actually bluffed me, and he showed me. And then so when I saw him get to my table the next day, I was like, oh, this guy, I'm not going to fall for his bluffs. Now I remember that was another reason why I was just willing to call this guy, because I was like, he likes to bluff. I've seen him bluff. Like he'll get off on it. Like he just kind of enjoys that, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna call him if I feel like I should. And in that hand, I did, and I lost, and the whole thing is that he had something like, what was it, like Jack nine, or yeah, something like Jack nine, because he flopped a straight. And I was thinking, I was like, if I would have bumped this ace queen, I think I was even suited. I was like, if I would have made this a healthy regular bet, it would have increased my chances so much to not have this guy follow me in with all the rest of the guys. Especially if like a big reason probably why he called in the end, he was the final caller, like the fourth caller, right? I think he got more incentive to call, because the other people were doing it. So he wanted to kind of just go on the little calling train, because he's thinking, oh, I got pot odds to call, and so that probably gave him more incentive. If I would have done a healthy bet, like something like 20 big blinds, at least that, something like that, it would have deterred most of the people. I would have gotten just probably one guy, and then not probably him, because he wouldn't have been tempted from the calling train. And then odds are, I don't think he would have called his jack nine for 20 big blinds pre-flop. I don't think he would have done that. And so this was all on me. This was like definitely all on me. It's like, oh my god, like that's what I get. And it's interesting because we had been going over this on the last episode, like about respect the premium stuff. You got to use this to your advantage, and then that's how you get bread and butter situations when you bump those up enough. And and if I would have done that, and even if at that worst situation, if I would have bumped it up how I should have, even if nobody would have called me, I would have taken down the blinds, and I wouldn't have lost my whole, like it was almost my whole stack. Like it was like three quarter, or it was like two-thirds of my stack or something already. And at that point, I didn't even want to play anymore. I was just sick of just playing in general. Like, and so I left after that. I was just like pissed off. I was just uh at a really bad place in terms of like my mindset, and I was tilted up, and all this stuff was adding in on me from the weeks of just how bad it's been, right? So yeah, and so I didn't take my own advice at that time, and so that's why when you go in there, you want to be ready to take in all these things. You don't want to be wary of monsters under the bed, and also you want to be able to slow down enough where you can process how you normally think. Like if this was me some months ago, I probably wouldn't have called that extra 50. I just would have been like, no, he probably has like two pair. And something recently that I've been doing, because I had been losing a lot to calling one pair all ins. I said recently a couple weeks ago that I was like, I'm gonna make a new little rule for myself that I'm not gonna do a one like a all in for all my chips. If it's more than like 30 big blinds, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not going to do it. I need at least two pair. I need a set. I need more in order for me to start going in with these things, because I started getting too loose with just calling down with a top pair top kicker or a top pair good kicker, and I've been like losing on that, because that's a losing play. And so I was like, all right, if I have about 30 to 35 big blinds, you know, then I'll go all in with a top pair, top kicker type of thing. But if it's not, but if it's more than that, I'm not going to do it. And then so I did it here in this situation, and so I broke another one of my rules. And so just because you learn something in the gymnasium by yourself doesn't mean that it's going to translate to the game. So you got to make sure that you prepare yourself, you remind yourself of your key things that you're going to stick to, and all that stuff. And in this game, just how I said on last episode, that you don't have to be balanced at all. You can In this game, you can also fold exploitatively and still make a profit. You might not make a big profit that day if you just happen to get bad kind of hits or bad runs on turns and like or in rivers or whatever, and people end up re-raising you. You might barely just break even that day, right? But it'll be better than calling this stuff in when, like, you're beat to like a set or more, you know. And so because in this game, people don't usually do these raises unless they got something really good, especially on the river. And then so I should have just known on the flop that, oh, this guy, it must have hit him. And then my dumbass let all these four people in. And then the board was a very straightening board. So what did I expect? You know what I mean? Like, what did I really like? I really thought my ace queen was good. It was very good, and it's still. I mean, it was very good initially, and I flopped a pretty damn good hand, top, right? But that doesn't mean shit with all the other people that you got in there with, and then the way that how the board is straightening right off the flop, that's not good. And so I should have just kissed those 25 big blinds away. Like that could have been another thing that I could have saved, and then I could have just maybe added on a little bit and just kind of stuck it out for one more round or hour of playing. But I just left after that, and so it was all on me. And so just how I was like, I like reread that part last episode. I was like, you have to bump up the premium hands. You have to respect the premium hands. And I still didn't do it. And you got to go with your bread and butter situations, because if not, you're not going to be eating good. You're not going to be eating good at all. So and yeah, so that's my story with that, of what happened recently. I wanted to talk before we leave. I wanted to talk a little bit about. I was playing Tetris on my phone, right? Because I was at a family. It was like a birthday party event, and I was briefly on my phone playing Tetris, right? And I guess my phone upgraded, or I'm not sure when I did this, but I have like a slightly upgraded version of Tetris, because I'm used to playing like the classic, just like the regular Tetris, right? And so I just started getting into my thing, and I started playing, and I was like, all right, level one. And it wasn't like regular level one. They had stuff in there already. So you kind of had to like not fix it, but you had to deal with the obstructions that were already in there, and make a certain amount of lines. Like you had to make 10 lines, in this amount of time. So you had like a quota that you had to fulfill with these obstructions in the way. right? As opposed to the classic Tetris, which doesn't have a quota of time that I usually play, and there's usually nothing like usually have like a blank slate to start with, right? So this is a little bit different, right? I was realizing midway through this game, I was like, oh, in this newer version of Tetris, it's kind of good to just start shooting it down. Like you don't have to be so pretty and perfect. Like in the classic Tetris, I'm used to being like very like, oh, like I'll like think about it almost too much. Like I'm like thinking way ahead, like almost too much, right? Like almost being anal or like a form of like neurotic. You know what I mean? Because like neurosis is like something in the brain where like some people will have to like there'll be people who will explain something to you, right? Especially older people, right? But you don't have to be older for this. This could be for anyone. And some neurotic people will explain something to you. And even and right when you say, yes, or you acknowledged it, then they kind of repeat it again a little bit as if like they think you didn't hear it. And then they might repeat it again, or like we all do that thing where like you like lock your car door or and then like 20 seconds later you're like walking like further away, you're like, did I lock my door? And then you just kind of do it again just because let me just double do it if I didn't do it. And you do it again. That's a form of neurosis, right? And then so when you are too anal and you have forms of neurosis, you can be too like you'll be too anal about making your moves too perfect. Like you'll have this weird perfection syndrome, right? About being too neat or too clean and making like the supposed perfect move, like the right move. And it's good to want to make your best move possible, right? That is a good thing. And what I noticed in this Tetris game is that it was advantageous to not be so pristine and so perfect. Like it's okay to just like it's not going to matter. Like your perfect move is not going to matter because you had these obstructions as you go on to the levels, and as you get onto level 2, level 3, they're going to have more obstructions, more things in the middle of the way that you have to work around, in order to make your quota. And so to make your quota in entry level no limit hold'em at your casino, you don't have to be super balanced and you don't have to be super perfect, super pristine. Like you don't have to be that. I was realizing I was like, oh my God, I was like, I've been trying to be especially like way earlier, like when I was playing, like I was trying to be too like I was trying to make the right moves too good. That's like a form of neurosis. And I was like, over there it doesn't work. Like with the variance of the game, like the natural variance of the game of how the cards fly, it just doesn't matter. And then so what I learned in this newer version of Tetris is like it's okay to get your feet wet, it's okay to get a little bit dirty and to throw it here even if it doesn't look so perfect. It's going to even out after a while, like after you build some more lines and do some more kind of Tetris lines. It that other part that looked ugly early on a couple like 2 minutes ago, it's going to even out. And so that's kind of like a good way to play poker is like sometimes it's okay to do, especially early on in the game, some moves that are not perfectly EV sound strategy, where you have like that was a super sound move. Like it's okay a little bit to like not splash around, but to kind of just get in the mix and to kind of see where it goes a little bit and to kind of roll with it a little bit and not focus on being super anally perfect, because when you focus on just being like Mr. Perfect and Mr. Pristine, you end up being like a nit. You end up being like you end up just waiting around, and then when you finally get your big hand, you'll make a good raise or a good bet, and like nobody wants to play with you. So you're waiting all this time for nothing, and then it's like and things just don't and it's also really hard. Like you have to get really lucky like as well to play it like that, like so it's a weird balance of like wanting to be sound, strategic and sound. It's very important, it's very foundational, but at the same time you have to realize that there's obstructions in this little Tetris game, or how in poker we say there's variance, right? Meaning like things can go up and down and like you have no control over it. Like things don't necessarily go as implied as expected. And then so because of that, it's okay to mix in certain things a little bit, and to not be so anal, right? And so I was like, oh, like it like so that's why you see some players that are not that good, like they'll still have winning days and winning nights, and that's another reason why poker's industry is not poor. Like it's a rich industry, because there's people that are constantly, you know, supplying the income for it, right? And so yeah, it really made me think. That new Tetris game that I was playing, I was like, yeah, you don't have to be perfect. Like you don't want to be a super anal nit, but at the same time, you don't have to be super perfect. And but you still just stick to your regular game plan. You still want to be sound, and you still want to be safe as well. You know what I mean? But you can still get your feet wet. You can still get your hands dirty a little bit in there. Like it's okay to, and then that's why that rule that I made up lately for myself of like, okay, do not, no matter what, don't go all in with one pair with less than 30, 35 big blinds. I'm not going to do it. Like it has to be like I need something better than that, or it has to be like I said, less than 30, 35 big blinds. Like if it's less than that, then okay, I can afford it, right? But if I have more than that in my stack, I'm not gonna do it, man. I'm not gonna do it no more. It's like a sucker's thing to pay that off. You know what I mean? So yeah. So that's been so that was the most recent thing. And so I'm letting these things integrate, like like relearning all this stuff like again and again, because until I start doing it out in the felt, like executing it, like on the spot for real, you know what I mean, then I don't have to keep thinking about it no more. You know what I mean? Um so I acknowledge that, it's a process to convert information and knowledge to like actual application and like real practical wisdom, right? So hope you guys enjoyed that. You can email me at uncannymysticminds at gmail, and I will be putting up the YouTube, best believe. Okay, I keep talking about that. And so and also follow the Spotify. All right, and I appreciate it. Email me if you got any questions, and I want to try to have some guests on soon or talk about poker and all that stuff. So hope you guys have a good one. Good luck, and I'll see you guys soon.